people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this, what is fast becoming one of the more popular segments here on the channel, Ring IQ Hate Mail, where I address the comments of some disgruntled customers that are mad at me. Reactions to the reaction. My reaction of Clarissa Shields' recent call-out of Layla Ali behind a giant-sized publisher's clearinghouse check. Corny. A guy who goes by the name R. Skyas said, oh, shut up. Everyone keeps saying that Clarissa has no opponents at her weight, so what's the problem with Layla earning 15 to 20 million if she wants to? Cock-blocking haters. More like hypocrites playing favorites, because isn't Clarissa Shields the one who regularly takes shots at Jake Paul for fighting over-the-hill fighters, old and retired fighters? Oh, it's wrong when he does it, but it's okay when she does it? I would have thought that a double Olympic gold medalist would have been held to a higher standard. A 3-time undisputed champion? Apparently not. Not to this guy. Was I supposed to be excited that she's calling out a woman almost 50? Just the other day I talked about how Americans don't seem to respect the pioneers that came before them. You can tell that you don't see the Brits disrespecting their legends, or the Mexicans disrespecting theirs, the Aussies, the Japanese. It's only in America you really see this. When a Shakur Stevenson takes shots at the late great Sugar Ray Robinson, often dubbed the father of the pound for pound, or when Clarissa Shields takes shots at Layla Ali, one of the few women boxers that were boxing before women's boxing was even a thing. You can just tell that honor is not a thing to some people. And how all of this got started, because many, many years ago, I think about 5 or 6, Layla was asked if she sees anybody out there that would make her want to lace the gloves up again, make her want to come back, to which she replied, no, she doesn't see anybody out there that gives her a reason to come back, and nobody else took offense to this. Not Cecilia Brækhus, not Christina Hammer, not Franchon Cruz or Savannah Marshall, only Clarissa. Why Clarissa would take that as a personal attack? Because she's retarded. Layla Ali was already out for many, many years at that time, and she was then 41 or 42. Now she's 47. Now she's close to 50, and having been out of the ring for close to 20 years, what's the point in calling her out? It's a humiliation tactic. She either accepts the fight and gets humiliated, or she doesn't accept the fight and gets humiliated for that. Like what she's been doing to Keith Thurman all these years. Calling him out for a fight to where if he gave you what you wanted, he'd get lambasted for that, and if he doesn't give you what you want, you'll lambast him for not fighting you. It's a humiliation tactic. She wants to humiliate people. It comes from an inferiority complex. So now she's calling out 50-year-olds. The other day, she tried to justify it by bringing up Jake Paul's fight with Mike Tyson, saying that if he can fight a 56-year-old Mike Tyson, why can't she fight a 47-year-old Layla Ali? But this goes way before Jake Paul's fight with Mike Tyson. She's been angling for a fight with Layla long before Jake Paul ventured into boxing. She's been at this for a long while. I've got videos going as far back as 5 and 6 years ago. Trying to use Jake Paul as a justification for this is disingenuous, to say the least, since you've been calling her out since before Jake Paul even got into boxing. It's disingenuous, and you can just tell that honor is not a thing to some people. It's not a thing in the Clarissa Shields household. You can tell they have a penchant for pursuing fights with old people, because didn't her little brother strike an elderly man and James Ali Bashir at the press conference for what was the Ivana Habazin fight? Didn't he punch him in the back of the head when he wasn't looking? You can just tell that honor is not a thing to some people, and what kind of stock she comes from. That doesn't change because she won 2 gold medals or a bunch of vacant titles, or because some dipshit named R. Skias complains in the comment section of my video if you don't like what you're hearing and go somewhere else.
You expect me to celebrate this ratchetry?
We saw yesterday what a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao looked like having not boxed in 4 years. So what do you imagine a 47-year-old Layla Ali's gonna look like having not boxed in almost 20?
And I don't know what Layla's gonna do. It's a lot of money. I don't know that Layla won't take Claressa Shields up on her offer, but at the same time, in all the years that followed Layla's retirement, I never got the sense that she was strapped for cash, because when she walked away from the sport of boxing 18 years ago, she wasn't one of these fighters that left and then came back and left and then came back like a Manny Pacquiao.
What a lot of fighters do when the well runs dry and they need money.
Layla never did that.
Even during the Renaissance, the big women's boxing boom of 2016, you still never saw Layla trying to come back. She made it very clear it would take a vast sum of cash to get her to consider it. And I'm not one for beating around the bush. There is a pretty girl, ugly girl element to this. There really is. You can tell that Claressa resents Layla Ali for more reasons than one.
You're telling me you're this bent out of shape because a woman who was already retired before you went pro.
You're telling me that because she said that she don't see nobody out there that would make her want to come back, you're this bent out of shape about it. Bear in mind that when she said this, Claressa Shields was just starting out.
Was Claressa Shields expecting Layla Ali to grovel at her feet? Probably, since that's what she expects the rest of us to do.
Yeah, you can just see what kind of household she was raised in. She doesn't come from good stock. And neither does this Skias guy if he's mad at me for pointing it out. For not celebrating Claressa pursuing a fight with a woman almost 50 years old.
You come from trash, buddy, and all you know how to celebrate is other trash. That's your problem.
You should stay in your own lane and celebrate Claressa as much as you like. What you're not gonna do is come here and tell me how I should feel about it.
Because you even being able to leave a comment is a privilege I'm giving you. I can take it away whenever I feel like.
You're not entitled to talk to me or talk to anybody.
If anybody gave a rat's furry ass about what you think, we'd be watching a video about your opinion. You're watching a video about mine, trying to gatekeep what I should say?
Kiss my ass.
A dick.
Piece of shit like you
You.
is always gonna look for approval from somebody like me. That's the order of things, and you better recognize it.
That's why you're mad.
Stay mad, bitch.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Tim Tszyu's post-fight comments after his second loss to Sebastian Fundora, he said, "I tried to give it everything, but I just couldn't do it. Victory belongs to Sebastian Fundora, the best boxer at junior middle on the planet right now. He was just the better man. He's very hard to land. He's tall as hell. I felt like I was shadow boxing with myself. It is what it is. Congratulations to Fundora and his team."
Gracious in defeat, Turki LL Sheik was not so gracious with Tim Tszyu. He said, "I told you from the very beginning Tim Tszyu does not deserve to be on a Riyadh Season or Ring Magazine card. He can be useful as a sparring partner for a champion at Riyadh Season."
Petty.
Would seem that Turki LL Sheik was tuned into yesterday's Pacquiao versus Barrios card, and he made time to be petty, as boxing fans often are to that. Veteran boxing scribe Brian Campbell stated, "Absolutely classless tweet from Turkey earlier tonight regarding Tim Tszyu. There is no place for boxing for that kind of bullshit."
Oh, but isn't there? We see it every weekend. We see it all the time. You're angry that Turki LL Sheik was kicking Tim Tszyu while he was down, but how many people weren't just kicking Edgar Berlanga while he was down?
After Hamza Shiraz knocked him down and knocked him out, how many people weren't saying the same kind of stuff about Edgar that Turkey is saying about Tim Tszyu? And wasn't Oscar De La Hoya doing the exact same thing publicly that Turki LL Sheik just did publicly?
You know, I actually asked Brian Campbell that question, not expecting to get an answer, but there were some who trying to differentiate Oscar's behavior towards Edgar from Turkey's behavior towards Tim, saying that, well, Oscar is a former fighter.
So what?
Oh, so is this the thing where you basically gatekeep what people are allowed to say on the premise that if you never boxed before, you're not allowed an opinion? Because that's what they seem to be saying about Turkey, that Turkey's not a former fighter, Oscar is.
But so what if he is? He's not being any less petty than Turki LL Sheik. And where Oscar and Edgar had a little beef between them. Turki and Tim had a little beef between them going back to last year when Tim Tszyu likened Turki El Sheikh to a petulant child that fighters were selling their souls to, all because Turki wanted him to box at Riyadh season. Yes, Turki is being petty, but no more petty than Oscar is being, and than many of you are.
Because you guys are stepping on eggshells whenever you talk about the boxers, you guys say worse stuff, much worse than what Turki said. It's another instance of rules for thee, but not for me.
We're gonna gatekeep what Turki El Sheikh is allowed to say now, the guy who's financing the biggest and best fights in the sport of boxing right now.
It's not even for love of Turkey,
But hate for the hypocrisy, the double standards that I often see in the sport of boxing. You've got boxing fan and boxing content creators who on a regular basis, when things go sideways for a fighter, they say a lot worse than what Turki El Sheikh said when Josue Vargas got knocked out by Jose Zepeda.
when Spence got annihilated by Terence Crawford, or when Stephen Fulton got annihilated by Naoya Inoue, when Alexander Usyk beat Tyson Fury not once but twice, and Daniel Dubois not once but twice. You had a lot of people saying a lot of things, and nobody was clutching at their pearls about it.
Next fighter ends up in a highlight reel, there were going to be that many people saying that many more things, and nobody's going to clutch at their pearls about it, so that you guys should lose your minds, because a guy who spends millions, literally millions on boxing, he should not have an opinion.
But you can. You can, and so can everybody else. How many people weren't calling Anthony Joshua a hype job because he got knocked out by Andy Ruiz, because he got knocked out by Daniel Dubois, and he's a more accomplished guy than Tim Tszyu?
How do I know? Because I'm a fan of both of those fighters, and I watch the boxing fans and some members of the boxing community relentlessly kick those fighters while they were down.
So why are you clutching at your pearls now? Because you expect better of Turkey than you expect from yourself? That's the problem with a lot of you people.
Rules for thee, but not for me. I'm allowed to say whatever I want.
You are, but so is he.
I didn't enjoy watching Tim Tszyu getting beaten from pillar to post yesterday. I didn't like it. It was hard to watch. But I also understand that fair is fair. People want to play by a different set of rules when this Turkey guy is involved, because underneath it all, you already made a decision not to like him. Now, you're just looking to justify it. He's not behaving in any other kind of way than you do on a regular basis.
So if he's an insensitive piece of shit for kicking Tim Tszyu while he's down, I guess that also applies to the entire boxing community. Since they do it all the time, it just depends on the fighter.
Let Gervonta Davis lose the Lamont Roach rematch. How many people do you think are going to pull punches on him?
God forbid, the day that he knew he loses. The guys that have been calling him a hype job all this time, they're not going to pull punches on him.
So that when Brian Campbell says that there's no place for this in the sport of boxing, where the hell have you been all this time?
This is how it's always been.
If purchasing a ticket or purchasing a pay-per-view entitles you to have an opinion, what do you think spending the millions upon millions of dollars that Turkey spends on boxing entitles him to? Who the hell do you people think you are?
I didn't enjoy watching Tim get beat up yesterday. I was a fan of that guy. But the reality of it is, Turkey's just as entitled to his opinion as you're entitled to yours. And it's no better and no worse than yours. So stop acting brand new.
Just in keeping with the theme of acting brand new, this past weekend news broke that Brian Norman signed up for VADA to start immediately instead of the originally agreed upon date of August 1st, per his team via Devin and Bill Haney.
Who were crying about it last week on the Boxing Voice? I didn't like the optics of it, and I still don't. Devin Haney reacted to that news by saying, yes, do as you're told.
Those still seem to me to be the actions of a team that is nervous, a team that had cold feet and are looking for any reason to call this fight off, because you have to consider that if both teams already sat down with Turkey, ironed out a deal, both agreed to the terms, and announced the fight, what are you acting brand new now for?
Oh, you got a new set of demands? And if those demands aren't met, what are you gonna do? You're gonna walk away, and you're gonna walk away because you don't really want this fight.
Now, I heard it said in some circles that what this is the Haneys trying to get their narrative in order. That If the Normans didn't agree to start testing sooner, it's because they were on something. They're trying to plant that seed and put it in people's heads that the Normans are doping.
That the Normans are doping like Ryan is doping, except the Normans agreed to start testing early. So you would think that puts all the narratives to rest, right?
Wrong. You want to pay attention what happens in the buildup of that fight and what happens immediately after, especially if Brian Norman wins. Because if an adverse finding comes out as a result, it's gonna look very suspicious on the Haneys.
Say Brian Norman wins. Brian Norman knocks out Devin Haney, and then shortly afterwards, news breaks of an adverse finding via his anti-doping test. It's gonna look like the Haneys set him up, since some people think the Haneys set up Ryan Garcia.
Via their connections to Victor Conti and via his connections to VADA. That's the narrative that a lot of people ran with, and I'm just saying, if the exact same thing happens with Brian Norman, a lot of people are gonna think the Haneys set him up.
That doesn't mean that I ever agreed with that narrative, but it would be history repeating itself, wouldn't it?
It still seems to me to be the actions of a team that is nervous, because I reiterate, if you already ironed out all of the particulars, how do you all of a sudden then come up with new ones before you've even gone into camp? It must be because this is weighing heavy on your conscience. You don't know if you can win. We all saw what you looked like with Jose.
You were basically social distancing with Jose Ramirez for 36 minutes.
Why would a fighter who's all in his prime, has his reflexes and his wit, his confidence about him, have to fight a slow-footed Jose Ramirez the way you fought a Jose Ramirez, to then go in there with an even bigger, younger, stronger, fresher fighter in Brian Norman? You guys seem nervous.
You jump on the boxing voice, you raise this big stink about when the testing is supposed to start, when you already knew when the testing was supposed to start because you agreed to it. Just like the Normans. But you get in front of a camera, you act brand new, you ham it up for the boxing fans and the content creators.
Because what you're really doing is getting your narrative in order whilst looking for a way out. Any reason to call this fight off, to walk away. And I like the Normans' response. I like that they decided to start the testing early.
You won't get away that easy. You won't have that excuse. You'll have to come up with something else. Some other reason in between now and November when used two are supposed to fight. If Devin Haney gets injured in camp and he has to withdraw.
It's not gonna fool anybody, Bill. It's not gonna fool anybody, Devin. You kinda just gave it away that you don't really want this.
You kinda just showed us how bad the Normans do, how bad they want this fight, and how much you don't. Because you were ready to walk away.
What does that say? Brian Norman presents more speed, more power than Devin Haney has had to deal with at any of the weights that he's campaigned. He doesn't have a natural size advantage over this guy,
which Devin has largely benefited from as a lightweight, as a super lightweight.
Gotta call a spade a spade. All this hullabaloo about when the anti-doping testing starts, knowing when it already was supposed to start, just comes off as a team that's very, very nervous right now, and they're cooking up excuses. They're looking for reasons to get the hell out of Dodge. Bill Haney's one of these guys that thinks because he talks fast, people don't pick up on his bullshit, like people can't connect the dots or put two and two together.
Fast bullshit still smells like bullshit, okay, Bill? Fast bullshit still stinks.